So good evening, each and every one of you. My name is Lev Natan, and I'm the founding director of Alliance for a Viable Future. First and foremost, it's essential that we acknowledge that we are gathering here on land where the Stockbridge Muncie band of the Mohicans called home. It's where they raised their children and celebrated the good things of life together. Next, I need to send greetings and thank you to everyone who has made this possible. Thank you to so many people, so many organizations. We wouldn't be here together right now if it wasn't for the hard work and dedication of so many community members who share in our commitment to observing Indigenous Peoples Day. First, I need to send greetings and thanks to my family, my wife Sarah, my son Emmett, and my parents Alan and Sherry for their sacrifices that you have made in order to support me to do this work. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you to our panelists for agreeing to share your precious wisdom with us tonight. Carol, Dana, Jake Singer, Bonney Hartley, and Shawn Stevens. Thank you to the core organizing team, Susan Jameson, Michael Johnson, Al Blake, and Jeff Wallman. Thank you to the Unitarian Universalist meeting of Southern Berkshires, where we are right now, for generously sharing your beautiful space with us tonight. And to Karen, Erin, Robin, Jessica, and Ray. Thank you so much to all of our individual donors who believe in this work. Thank you to our sponsors for your generous contributions. The fact that so many businesses, organizations, and foundations in our community have said, yes, we want to support Indigenous Peoples Day in our first year of organizing this public event in Great Barrington is a powerful and significant affirmation. So Ray has put that on the screen here, all of the sponsors. We really appreciate it. And now, thank you, each and every one of you. Those of you who are here in person, thank you. Those of you who are calling in on Zoom behind me, I have to look behind to see you, but thank you. And those who are watching the recording, so I know a lot of people said they couldn't attend tonight, but wanted to participate and be connected. And thank you to your families and to all the people in your lives who made it possible for you to be here right now. I would also like to send my greetings and thank you to the elements of life. Thank you to our precious Mother Earth, who gives us everything that we need. May there always be clean, pure water to drink. May we always have the warmth of a fire to keep us warm and to cook our food. And may there always be fresh air to breathe. Thank you to the whole web of life. You connect us all together. You are the reason that our hearts and our minds are one. Thank you. It was not my intention to leave anyone out. So as I learned from my Lakota relatives, aho mataku yasin, thank you to all my relations. And so now I feel it is important to share some personal words with you about why I am committed to organizing my community and this bioregion to observe Indigenous Peoples Day. For more than 20 years, I've been asking these questions. Why do we humans treat each other and the earth the way that we do? Why do we have racism? Why do we have economic oppression? Why do we treat our home, the living earth, as a product to consume? Why do we destroy the very life support systems that we rely on to survive? Those questions led me to even more urgent questions. How are we going to clean up the mess that we have gotten ourselves into? How are we going to heal our society and the natural world? More than 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to live with Native people in Africa, India, New Zealand, and Mexico. In my time with the Maasai people in northern Tanzania, I experienced a peace of mind that I had never before known. My body's visceral intelligence taught me that the indigenous way of life is precious. I felt a deep wisdom in their homeland, and I developed a profound respect and love for indigenous people. When I returned to the States, I had the good fortune to begin an apprenticeship with an Algonquin man in the Hudson Valley of upstate New York named Hawk's brother, who introduced me to one of his teachers, Chief Jake Swamp of the Mohawk Nation, who told the story of the peacemaker and the Thanksgiving address. I felt deeply inspired as I learned about the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, an alliance of the Mohawks, Oneidas, Onondagas, Cayugas, Senecas, and later Tuscaroras. The following words from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy's website speak to its value to all of us. Here's a quote: often described as the oldest participatory democracy on earth, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy's Constitution is believed to be a model for the American Constitution. What makes it stand out as unique to other systems around the world is its blending of law and values. For the Haudenosaunee, law, society, and nature are equal partners, and each plays an important role. This sacred form of governance that inspired our founding fathers also inspired me to see a vision for the Northeast bioregion. It's a vision that has become our mission at Alliance for a Viable Future. I saw that it is possible for us to remember the original peoples of this land and to honor their original instructions, to be grateful and to take good care of everything that has come before us. I saw that it is possible to revitalize this way of governance that integrates law, values, and nature. I saw that it is possible to teach our children and future generations to live together with peace, with creativity, and in harmony with the earth. While this vision inspired me many years ago, it left me at a loss for what to do. I looked around and I didn't know where to begin. The vision and the task seemed so great. Eventually it became too heavy for me and I fell into depression, anxiety, and confusion. I felt hopeless about the state of the world and about my own ability to create positive, meaningful, and lasting change. At the same time, I was struggling with the symptoms of chronic Lyme disease. These factors were like a perfect storm that sent me into what I've heard described as a dark night of the soul. I share this deeply personal life experience because I want you to know that my relationship with Indigenous Peoples Day is deeply personal. Like many young adults in my generation, while enduring this dark night, I questioned whether it was worthwhile for me even to be here. And more than once, I actually thought about taking my own life. It was the indigenous ceremonial way of life, Sweat Lodge, Vision Quest, and the Sundance ceremony, quite literally, that saved my life. Through the generosity of my adopted granddad, Jake Singer, who you will hear from tonight, I was able to heal and gradually step into leadership. Everything that I have now, my health, my family, my capacity to work, function, and contribute to my community is because of the indigenous ceremonial way of life. It gave me a way to keep going, to not give up when I was going through my darkest trials. It gave me a way to hold on to the vision that inspired me. And it made me strong and healthy once again, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. In the last 15 years, I've come to rely on the Indigenous ceremonial way of life for the things that are most important to me, my family, my health, and my faith and trust in the future. I have learned that this way of life didn't just teach me how to be strong and resilient. It actually made me strong and resilient. When I look around and I see the world that we're living in, I see us needing to learn to be strong and resilient. While it's important to ask why are we in this mess? It's more important to jump in, to get involved, and to lead by example. To do that, we need to develop our capacity to be strong and resilient. In the last 500 years since Columbus came here to Turtle Island, Native American people have faced the unimaginable. The colonial project of manifest destiny attempted to wipe out their cultures. The American government forced the children of indigenous nations to go to horrifying boarding schools and attempted to make them forget their language and their spiritual connection to their people. And through all that, they have found a way to survive and to protect their ceremonial way of life. They are still here and they will continue to be here. And not only that, they have survived with a spirit of generosity that is so strong and vital that some even welcome young white folks like myself into their ceremonial ways and adopt us into their families so that we can heal together. For me, Indigenous Peoples Day is about standing in solidarity with Native American people. It's about taking a stand together. It's about taking a stand together and saying the genocide and attempted genocide of Indigenous peoples in the United States of America was wrong. It was a crime against humanity. It's about acknowledging this truth so that we can move forward into the future, standing on a foundation of truth and reconciliation. It's time for us to come together as one and do what needs to be done for the children and for the future generations. I'll say that much for now. Thank you so much for your kind attention and for your care for this work. So before I introduce the panelists, I would like to introduce a very special guest, Gwendolyn Vincent, the Chief Executive Officer and Founding Director of MultiCultural Bridge, an organization that has become a pillar in the Berkshires, teaching us how to live together with more harmony. She also sits on the W.E.B. Du Bois Legacy Committee, where she collaborated with Randy Weinstein, who is also here in the audience. Thank you for coming, Randy, to introduce the Indigenous Peoples Day Proclamation to the Great Barrington City Council, which was signed into law on September 23rd, 2019, a couple years ago, by Steve Bannon, William Cook, Leigh Davis, Edward Abrahams, and Kate Burke. I would like us to give a round of applause for Gwendolyn, Randy, and the Great Barrington City Council for their honorable work to officially recognize Indigenous Peoples Day here in Great Barrington. Now let's give a warm welcome to Gwendolyn, and we want to hear you say some words. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hi. So thank you, Lev, for that, your powerful remarks. And thank you for the invitation to speak this evening. I'm going to be brief. I just wanted to speak to you a little bit about our process and a little bit about Bridge's work. The first thing that I want to say is that this is a deeply meaningful day and celebration and honoring for me, because like Lev, at a time that was a difficult time in my life, about 16 to 18 years ago, I also had the opportunity of participating in prayer circles, fire ceremonies, water ceremonies, sweat lodges, all the things that Lev mentioned with Susan Jameson, Fidel Moreno, and James Etsidi of the Navajo Nation. And it, as Lev testified, it really transformed my life. Like those of you that know Sam and Bridge and how important those things are in my life, they all came after that healing work that I did. So this day also holds deep meaning for me. In my role as vice chair of W.B. Du Bois Legacy Committee, Randy Weinstein, who's in the back, approached me and asked me if I felt it was a proper advocacy of our committee to support Indigenous Peoples Day. And I said, of course. Our town select board had been nothing but supportive of our Du Bois work, and I felt that this aligned with that mission. And as we honor Du Bois's legacy and the generations of scholars and activists that uplift W.B. Du Bois's work, we would be remiss not to honor the land we were on and its history and its people. So that was a beautiful evening. We were joined by Steve Goodman, and it was a unanimous vote to honor Indigenous Peoples Day. And we're happy and grateful for Lev for you to pick up the torch and have the festivals and ceremonies that we're going to have this year. And then Lev asked me to speak about Bridge. So Bridge, as many of you know, we do many things. Thank you for calling us, giving us the credit that you did, Lev. What we're most committed to is doing all of our work with the race equity and gender equity and poverty approach. And so our Towards Racial Justice group, some of them are on the screen tonight, show up to support any efforts that create safety and justice in our community. So what was I gonna say about that? We have a campaign towards racial justice and equity in the Berkshires. We started in 2009. And what our mission is to engage all community members that want to effectively work and create a coalition of activists, leaders, community members, and allies. So the next question that Lev gave me was for me to speak about my vision of this work and thinking about building solidarity among BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, and white allies here in the Berkshires and beyond. And my best answer to that was a Reverend Barber quote from the Third Reconstruction that I want to share with you. Reverend Barber says, "In a fusion coalition, our most directly affected members would always speak to the issue closest to their own hearts, but they would never speak alone. When workers spoke up for the right to organize and engage in collective bargaining, the civil rights community would be there with them. And when civil rights leaders petitioned for the expansion of voting rights for people of color, white workers would stand with them. Only a fusion coalition representing all the people in any place could push a moral agenda over and against the interests of the powerful. But such coalitions are never possible without radical patience and stubborn persistence." So those are the words of Reverend Barber in the Third Reconstruction. And I think that that's most important for us as we think about this work, as we do racial justice organizing around immigrant rights or anti-Blackness. We should also think about Indigenous rights, and we should all think about and be reminded of our interconnectedness. That I learned from the Unitarian Universalists. In many ways, I'm coming home tonight between the Indigenous circles, talking about W.B. Du Bois, and then also being here in the Unitarian Church, where I've done work as a religious educator and also been a part of the social justice work. And what we teach in the UUs, one of the covenants, is about the interconnected web of life that we're all a part of. So none of us can heal if we don't all heal together. And that's what I think is most important and why we must work together towards this vision that Lev laid out for us. Lev asked me directly to speak about white allies and the role in this coalition work. And it's essential. It's essential that we unpack the role of whiteness and white supremacy, the colonial mindset in our day-to-day. It has daily damaging impact on communities. And the white ally and accomplice is most essential in shifting resources of time and energy into dismantling oppressive structures in our culture while unraveling their own socialization into whiteness. And for this evening, I want to remind these white allies to ask the questions, to align yourself with voices that have been marginalized in our communities, to amplify their voices within your own sphere of influence, to acknowledge the healing that's been done and that needs to be done, and that we must all activate together to build a more resilient, healthy, and safe community for all of us to thrive. Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Indigenous Peoples Day and its origin story will be shared this evening by the panel. And for me, these discussions that will happen over the next few weeks present us with an opportunity to own our authentic history and to acknowledge the stories and lives of those muted or pushed to the side. This should be our everyday practice. The acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples should be a way of life and as ritualistic as the Pledge of Allegiance and our national anthem. The last thing that I want to say before I turn it over to our panelists, we all came to hear this evening, is that another role that I played with the town of Great Barrington is organizing under a grant called the Municipal Vulnerability Grant that was about climate resilience. So I'm very excited to hear the panels connect the Indigenous wisdom to this climate resilience work that we're all a part of. Last year, we were able to convene our Latino community, our Black community, our municipal leaders, our youth leaders, and we had intergenerational conversations about the climate. And I'm happy to report that Great Barrington has invited Bridgeback to do a second year. So I'll be listening deeply as we're all called to do tonight. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you, Lev, for an invitation to speak and to your powerful words. And let's all build community together by listening deeply with our hearts. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Thank you, everyone, for your patience, your kind attention. So thank you. It's going to take me a little getting used to because I have a video here, but then I want to see you guys behind me. That's just how it's set up. So yeah, I'm going to just introduce the panelists. We have Carol Dana, who is a Penobscot Language Master, and last year, when I interviewed her for my podcast, which you can listen to as well, I asked her how she wanted to be introduced, and she told me she's a mother and a grandmother. That's what really matters, not all the credentials. So I think I could just stop right there, but she has a very deep commitment to her language, and she's going to speak about that and storytelling. And then I hope my granddad, Chief Jake Singer, has he arrived yet? Well, you know, we'll pray for him to get the Zoom. We did a Zoom check earlier this week, but you know, we'll see. So he is a Diné Navajo medicine man and a traditional doctor. He's a Sundance chief, ceremonial leader, and a decorated Vietnam veteran. He conducts many traditional ceremonies for his community and has been working for 20 plus years on bringing awareness to support Native American veterans. Toward that end, he is the commander of Walk with the Warriors, an advocacy and education organization for Native American veterans. So I'll speak more about his work when he starts speaking. And then we have Bonney Hartley. She is the Historic Preservation Manager. I'm sure many of you know her. She speaks around here so much in this Berkshire's community. She's the Historic Preservation Manager for the Stockbridge Muncie Band of the Mohican. She heads up the Massachusetts Extension Office, which is based in Williamstown. And she has collaborated with many organizations in the Berkshires in New York State, working on historic preservation. So it's really wonderful to have her here. And then Shawn Stevens, also known as Red Eagle, is an enrolled member of this nation's First People, whose ancestral homelands are the Berkshires, including the entire Hudson Valley. As a member of the Stockbridge Muncie Band of the Mohicans, he is a Native American culturalist, artist, musician, and ceremonial helper, drawing on experience from living a Native American spiritual way of life. And Shawn has been coming to this area for many, many years. My good friend and organizer of this event, Michael Johnson, has created a really strong relationship with Shawn, and that's really the connection that brought him back this year, and I'm looking forward to deepening that relationship. So thank you, Shawn, as well, for being here. So thank you to all of our panelists, and we're going to just begin with Carol saying a few words. And Carol, we spoke earlier this week, and you were saying, I don't know what to say, but sometimes I'm angry about the way our people have been treated. You said, I'm not political, but the best way to be political is to be spiritual. That's what I heard. That's what you said you heard, and you like that idea. And you said, I grew up feeling like I was living half a life because I wasn't speaking my own language. You said, my teacher told me that speaking your own language is connected to having mental health. The relationship with your language changes your relationship with all of life. So I want to just give you, Carol, some time to speak and to share what you'd like to share tonight.
Okay, thank you, Lev. I'm trying to portray, I guess, the influences on our language in my talk. I had been around a lot of Passamaquoddy speakers, so it's always been there. My grandmother was Passamaquoddy and my grandfather's Penobscot, but she wouldn't let him speak his language because she said some of his words were dirty or nasty, so she said. And it was just an interest in life hearing about them, because she was a strict Catholic and he wasn't. He was just old way, I guess. And my conscious decision or desire for language was in her home, because she had women that would come in and they had a basket store in her living room, and they'd play games with her like Michigan Rummy or Pekino or whatever. And I could read body language well enough as a child, and I knew one day they were talking about me. And that's when my desire was born, for language. And I grew up in the 60s where the Indian people were saying, if you speak in your language, your creator's really going to hear you. If you pray in your language, if you can speak in your language. And I always remembered that. So that's how I started with the language. I figured creator's not going to correct my grammar, correct me, because I had started, I'll back up and talk about my grandmother and my great aunt. I tried learning from them, and they laughed at me when I made a mistake. I said, you changed just a syllable in that word and it changes the whole meaning of the word. So they thought I said something totally different from what they told me. And that made me a little afraid of the language too. But anyway, I started praying in the language. So I pray usually to the four directions. In the four directions, how I start. I thank the spirit in the four directions for what they bring, what they do. Like in the east is the new life, and the south too is life. So I thank all the women in for the blood and the life. There's colors associated with that too. And for all my relations. And then the grandfathers, I thank them for the teachings in the West. And in the North, well, I say G'dayat, Gawanika Babunki, Waliwani, which Debinawaki, Naganijanak. I just imagine them to be watching over the land and the children. And it's, kind of a short prayer, but another prayer could be that you're thankful for all the things, on the earth. To say I'm grateful is Dalamigol, which because of for Nemesug, fish, Sipsug, birds, Awayasug, the animals, Badagiak, thunders, Gizu, sun, Niboset, the moon, and Alamsun, Sugalan, sun, Minkwan, and Bamosa, we know my life. Dalna Bemnawak is how we say all my relations. And when we say all our relations, we mean everything in creation, not just blood relations. So in the 70s, I had run away from my marriage and gone to Akwesasne, where they prayed in their language, they spoke their language every day, they sang in their language, they did the ceremonies, and it was just an eye-opener for me and showed me how beautiful that is, in a life. And we were putting out the largest newspaper, Indian newspaper in North America, the Akwesasne Notes. And I lived there for like a year. And during the land claim, we had the Maine Indian land claim in 1980, which I believe is genocidal in nature because it separates us from their land. They coerced us into giving up our Aboriginal rights. And Longley, the governor of Maine at the time, kept saying he didn't want a nation within a nation. Well, my cousin Deanna stood up and she said, I speak a different language than English. And she started talking Passamaquoddy, and that was a powerful, powerful moment. And let's see, just some background. I ended up in Catholic schools. One woman from here, I couldn't believe she said it. She said, we wouldn't want to teach Penobscot because it would take away from the children's academics. And I thought, what about all the religious training they did, on us? And that wasn't academic at all. And it seemed like they were trying to get us to succumb to everything. I made issues in high school with a nun about wearing a headband, and what it was all about was they want you to conform. I was wondering, why is she so upset about a headband? So I kept pushing the issue. My friend Sipsis, she was very active at the time. She came in dressed in her buckskins and moccasins and her necklaces, and she talked to the principal, and he let it be after a while, but then everybody wanted to wear headbands. But anyway, she was quite a lady for me, kind of a mentor, an activist, and she was great help. So let's see, where was I? Oh, I graduated college. I had a hard time in college. I kept trying to go, and I worked for Frank Siebert. He was a fellow from Philadelphia. He was a tall German guy that came here as a student in 1930s, college student, I think, and he worked with Andrew Dana and Louis Lola and a few others here. He collected stories, and he had scads and notebooks of things he had written down that the people were telling him. And this was around the time too when, well, Raymond Paul is an elder. He told me, you and Barry are trying to turn back the trend that started 60 years ago. So this was in the 80s. So you've got to figure it was 1920 when the state was putting restrictions on our hunting and trapping. And these people that lived up the river, see, we live on an island in the Penobscot River, and we own 146 islands. Well, there were people still living out there, but they had to move down here and get jobs in town because they couldn't make it out there anymore. That's how they were making a go of it, was with their hunting and trapping. So Maine became a state in 1820, and they were, you know, squeezing us out, and that's how our people survived up here, you know, jacking deer and putting meat on the table. And it was a known thing, you know, among certain people, even after we were here. But the bigwigs in the tribe, Raymond Paul told me, the bigwigs in the tribe went door to door and told the people, we have to learn English now, and we got to get jobs in town, and never mind making your basket. So that was a decline of that too. And my cousin and I, Barry, were in the Indian Island School, elementary school. I subbed for him when I graduated college, and I wanted to bring language into the school, thinking we could, you know, do something to push back against all this that happened. And he got Mudlin, our elder, to teach in there, but she couldn't keep doing it. She said that the children aren't very respectful, according to her, because she was brought up by her grandmother, and she just had a hard time. So that wasn't it. But I got hired in 1996 to teach, but it was for only 20 minutes. And that's not enough to bring back a language. So.
Thank you, Carol. Do you
Mhm.
want to just say another minute or so? You have anything to finish with for now?
Well, no, just that I've been on this trail for, oh, I want to plug our book. We just printed a book out through UMass Press. Still, They Remember Me. It's in Penobscot in English. You can get it on Amazon and UMass Press. Margot Lukens, Connor Quinn, and I. Margot's a professor of English at University of Maine in Orono, and Connor's, well, he was a linguist. He's saying he's not, but he's pretty smart in a lot of languages. Myself put this book out. It's volume 1 of 3 volumes.
That's wonderful. We'll make sure to have a link to that on our website. You can give me.
Okay, and thanks, Lev, for the opportunity. So glad to
Thank
be
you,
here.
Carol. And so, you know, just stay here, and then we're going to have everyone share some words, and then there'll be some questions. So maybe someone's going to ask you a question in the after everyone else. So thank you so much for all your words.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so now I want to introduce Jake Singer. He's here. He got here on the Zoom, so it's wonderful that he can share with us. And as I said, I met him about 9 years ago, and then got to know him through the many ceremonies that he takes care of, and just been a very important person in my life. And I call him my granddad. He calls me his grandson, and we mean it. So you know, I have that personal relationship. And then he also inspires me, as I said, being a Sundance chief, and then doing a lot of work for Native American veterans. He's a Dene Navajo medicine man. So, you know, he grew up in Arizona, but then came out to the East Coast, mainly to work in Washington, D.C. For Native American veterans' rights and support and awareness for them. So just wanted to say those things, and he's been working on creating a Native American Veterans Day, November 7th, and now it's in the House again. Deb Haaland, the Secretary of the Interior, got it all the way to the House. So we're supporting that. So there's lots to say, but I want Jake, you to say some words yourself about all the work that you do out in the world for Native American veterans and over many years walking across the country, and then also about the ceremonial life too, and how it supports us to heal and to get stronger as human beings. So thank you, Grandpa.
Yep, thank you. As my grandson introduced me, my name is Jake Singer, and of the Bear Clan on my father's side, Tall House Clan on my mother's side, and I'm full-blooded Navajo, and like my grandson was saying, I was just wondering about over here in the East, trying to advocate for Native American Indian veterans. And I'm a commander for a veteran organization called Walk with Warriors. And then through this organization, then there's some things that we're working on, trying to make something happen for all veterans. But since I'm a Native American Indian and I'm a Vietnam veteran, decided, to do something for our Native American Indian veterans. And so we came up with the idea of making November 7th as American Indian Veterans Day. And we picked that date because the November is American Indian Month. And then this 7, the creator used it over and over to create so many things on this earth. And so it's a sacred number to a lot of ceremonial ways amongst different tribes. And then just like the way it is, amongst my people. And so decided to pick that day, and then we've been working on getting it done. In 2003, that resolution made it all the way to before President Bush, but he didn't sign it, and it went through the House, went through the Senate, and came before him, and he didn't sign it. So we kind of have to start all over again, and then it's been really hard, because during all that time, the House representative was kind of like owned by the Republicans, and they didn't really have anything to do with Native issues. So anyway, this resolution, when we first wrote it and decided what to do with it, we also decided to make a walk across the nation with it. And we started from, it was like in July of 2002, we started from San Pedro, California, and walked across the country. And we started with a lot of people walking with us, and then every so often everybody's gone, and then just a few of us walking. But then different veteran organizations join us and help us. And one of the group that helped us I'm trying to think of the name of the town. It's in Arkansas, Fort Smith, Arkansas. And there was an organization who joined us, and they were talking about making this day, Native American Indian Day. And they helped us, they walked with us all the way to Little Rock, Arkansas. And that was the first time I heard about changing Columbus Day to American Indian Veteran Day, American Indian Day.
Goodness.
And it sounded really wonderful, and I guess it took this long to finally get it to where it is right now. And on that resolution, we carried it all the way to Plymouth Rock, then brought it back to Washington, D.C. And we carried our warrior staff with us, with all the prayers and everything, and because there's a lot of things that came from the east amongst the Native people out west. Most of it wasn't something good, you know. It was the Native people experienced a lot of harshness from all the things that came from the east, especially the 7th Cavalry. And but we survived, and there's a lot I could say about all of that, you know, but in turn, you know, that the reason why I served in the military was because now we live under the federal government, and they could be better, but this is what we have right now, and who knows, you know, if another nationality comes in, it might be even worse. So so a lot of just like my uncles, the way they were telling me when they served in World War II, that they voluntarily went in, served in the military service because they were doing it for the Navajo people and all Native people, and what we believe in and how we pray and our traditional ceremonies and all the different kind of ceremonies that we do nowadays. And we wanted to continue and want our children to learn and to grow with it. So that was one of the reasons why I volunteered to go to the military, and only served three years, but that was enough, you know. And a lot of my comrades and then veterans from World War II, they were having a hard time, you know, in their everyday life, and a lot of them wound up on the streets, you know, and homeless, and they don't have any place to go, and it was sad to see that, you know. And so I wanted to do something about that, you know, and with becoming a commander for the veteran organization that I belong to. And when we had a voice, it's not big, you know, it's a small voice that can be recognized by the federal government. We decided to use that, you know, to do something positive for the Native American Indian veterans. And so that's kind of what we're doing right now. And our resolution hasn't been introduced into the House yet. But the state representative from Wyoming, Charisse, I forget her last name, but she's going to introduce the resolution sometime soon. And start all over again, you know, and we have a lot of positive thoughts about it, you know, and since the House is governed mostly by the Democrats now, and I've had a lot of positive results working with Democrats, and so I have a lot of great hopes that it's going to go through, and it'll be it won't be it don't have to be a holiday. It just be a day of recognition. But people who want to use that as a holiday or different tribes, they could do that, you know, and then the Native people, they have done a lot of positive things during the war, the process of World War II especially. And my people, we had a group called Navajo Code Talkers. And other tribes said they had code talkers too. So so Native people were used as code talkers to communicate in a hostile environment in different parts of the country where the war was going on, in Japan and Germany and different places. And then at the same time, you know, we're also working on building American Indian Veterans Memorial, which is going to be located near Oklahoma City. And it's going to be a huge memorial, and it'll have its own vet center, Native American Indian archives, and powwow grounds, rodeo grounds, amphitheater. We got a lot of stuff, you know, some crazy ideas we got, you know, but that's a way for it to support itself, you know, and so then it'll have its own cemetery also, Native American Indian Veterans Cemetery. So those are some of the things that we're working on, and so far it's going through the blueprint, and once that's done, then we'll be able to know how much it's going to cost and go out and try to get the money for it. So that's my work, and that's what I do, and then my wife is at work, you know, right now, and we have 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys, and 9 grandchildren, 8 boys and 1 girl. And And then 2 great grandkids. So we live over here in northeastern Pennsylvania, and still myself, I'm retired, but still working, trying to get something done for American Indian veterans. And I enjoy what I do, and sometimes it's hard, to do things for other people rather than for your own. But somebody's got to do it. And I'm glad to be part of this organization too, and my grandson and his group, they have a lot of positive things, good things, and lined up an intention for the welfare of the all humans, and especially Native people. But but what's really important to me is the environment, the conservation, and the caretaking of the land that we live on, this earth, our mother the earth, our father the sky. And through that, we have certain prayers that we use to acknowledge. And it's just like everyday human life, if you take really good care of your loved ones, especially your mother, your father, your parents, and they would live and last a long time upon this earth. So that's how I look at it when I think about my mother the earth, my father the sky. In places I go, sometimes I see all kinds of stuff, junk in the water, floating in the water, and it's just really hard to accept it, but humans are humans, and we have to talk to one another, let each other know that that we should take care of our environment so that it will last a long time for our children, our great-grandchildren, and so on down the line. So it's really wonderful for what each one of you are doing and saying and being part of this conference. And I wish you all well, and thank you so much for your participation, and may the Great Spirit be with you all. I hope.
Thank you. I hope, Grandpa. Thank you for your words and your good thoughts for everyone that's here and everyone in the world. So appreciate it, and everything that you're doing and that you've done and that you're seeing for the future. Then it's good to share it with this community, so then we can learn about it and get behind it and get alongside with you. And then last year Jake came out. We had a small event that wasn't so public for our first year for Indigenous Peoples Day, and he brought his warrior staff that he walked across the country. So I'm hoping that you're going to do that again this year. You're going to bring your warrior staff and your chanupa too over here next week on Monday, October 11th. So we're looking forward to having you. Thank you.
I hope.
Yeah. So, yeah, good. And now I want to introduce again Bonney Hartley for you to say some words about the work that you do for your homeland here in the Berkshires for historic preservation and how that's connected to Indigenous Peoples Day and you know, the future of your people and the future of Indigenous people and really all people. So thank you so much, Bonney, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Nishik. Kolomosi ni Deshenzi Tehe Quindohat, ni Nonjai Mohicanuck, ni Mohikanewa, ni Elangomati Takwak. Her name in our language is, she has her arms around the people, Tehe Quindohat. And along with Shawn, I'm an enrolled member of Stockbridge Muncie Mohican Nation. And I'm really happy to be able to be here on my own homelands. I live in Troy on the Mahikanatuk, and then, like Lev mentioned, our Historic Preservation Office is based in our homelands to better carry out our interests on behalf of our ancestors, and it's in Williamstown, Massachusetts. So yeah, the work that I mainly focus on for Stockbridge Muncie community is on work that really our ancestors have always done. It's not a new thing. Ever since we were forced to remove from Great Barrington, the Berkshires, all of our homelands to where the community is today in Wisconsin, we've always had examples of ancestors returning numerous times, you know, whenever they're made aware of, you know, road projects that were going through ancestors' burial grounds or, you know, other issues like that of concern. It's always been a priority for our community, even at great odds and obstacles, and even during times, you know, being you know, struggles at different times to still be able to return. So our Historic Preservation Office is just kind of more formalized now for the past 20 years or so in carrying out the work under the laws that we're able to use as a tool to better advance our interests in that way. But we, you know, mainly work on when there's different construction projects, trying to protect our ancestors' burial places and village sites. And I personally work mainly on repatriation. So I have the honor of trying to work to return our ancestors from wherever they've ended up at, you know, universities, collections, or museums, and try to get them back so we can rebury them, and also bring home cultural heritage items. So a lot of items that we've been separated from when the community was forced to remove from our homelands, you know, obviously a lot of stuff wasn't able. Oh, what's that? So when we were forced to remove, a lot of items stayed behind, or once we were in Wisconsin, there were different buyers and stuff that came out and separated people from, you know, different cultural heritage items. So we work on returning those as best we can back to Wisconsin, to our museum. So I guess for me to be living out here as a member of our tribe and being on our homelands day to day, it's always kind of a mixed emotions around that, because it's you know, something where it's really, you know, moving and, you know, beautiful to be able to see our different cultural places and standing right on the spot when there's archaeology, for example, being done, and they go back and scrape back in the soil, and you see that moment in history come to life when, you know, you see like the outline of where a wigwam pole was or something. I mean, it's really deeply moving to be able to see that moment. But it's also kind of mixed with, you know, pain a lot of times too, when you just, like, the staggering nature of the loss just kind of hits you, or when, you know, you just realize how nobody would want to leave here. I mean, just how abundant and lush and beautiful and, you know, so suitable for life, like all of the Mahikanatuk or Hudson Valley and the Housatonic River Valley are. You just see that nobody would want to leave there whatsoever. So that kind of just, I think, jumps out at you different times of what that would be like. And, you know, the pain involved in there is very real and tangible. This summer, there's been a lot of more momentum, I guess I'd say, maybe in the past year or so with historic preservation. And I would say that some bigger projects for Stockbridge Muncie that have come to fruition in the past year are that reclaiming a really important part of our homelands, which is called Papscony Island, and it's an island in the Mohican or Hudson River south of Albany. And there's the part of it is a nature preserve. And in this past year, Stockbridge Muncie was able to reclaim the nature preserve, so it's back in our community's hands again after 400 years. So it's kind of incredible, and it still retains the name of the Mohican sachem Papscony. So to have that happen was really huge. And then I guess closer to Great Barrington, we have a lot going on in Stockbridge, of course, because of our.
We just gave you a round of applause in
Oh,
the.
okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear it.
For you. So we want to celebrate that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And then, yeah, closer to Great Barrington and Stockbridge, there's a lot that's been moving. So like on Main Street, we have a walking tour of Mohican sites, and we've have a lot of work done at the mission house where the missionary to our tribe lived. His house, is preserved on the Main Street, and our tribe was able to open up an exhibit this past summer to tell our own story there. And for repatriation wise, we've repatriated about 6 items already from the mission house that are belongings of our sachem John Quinney, like personal heirlooms of his. And we've already returned those, and we're actually in progress right now to return everything. So the entire Mohican collection that exists at the mission house, we're in progress to have every single item from that collection returned to our community stewardship. We may loan some of the items back to the mission house if they relate to the story there, but overall, all the items would be back in Stockbridge Muncie's stewardship once again. And so that's really amazing to see. It's been about 100 years since the buyers came out to the reservation and separate a lot of elders from those items, which they called relics at the time. And there was kind of like this one round of purchasing where a lot of those items were taken. And so it's really incredible to have like about 100 years later, again, kind of like Papscony, it's just this full circle moment of having those come back. So anyway, so those are things that I find really fulfilling to work on behalf of our community. And when we bring those kind of items home, I think oftentimes you see often direct descendants, for example, of John Quinney, interacting with the items and being able to hold them again and see them in a new light, and they kind of take on a new symbolic meaning, I think, for a lot of people beyond just the tangible item itself. So it's a source of pride, I think, and inspiration, and I am happy to be part of that. And other than that, I guess I related to the topic overall of Indigenous Peoples Day and climate change, I wanted to share just something that for me personally always stands out about our people, our ancestors, is that there's a site that we care a lot about and is a priority to protect in New Lebanon, New York, so not too far. And when the missionary, the village at Stockbridge was happening, there was around that same time a village in New Lebanon. It was called Conameek, Mohican village, and it had this a healing spring. And so when our ancestors were forced to remove from that village, the agreement that they set out was that the waters there would have to remain. They just asked, they made a request that the waters would remain free and flowing for all of people for all of time. And to me, that's just something like I think about a lot, and I find it really profound, I guess, that to think about, even when your family and community is being forced off your village or your homes and your land, that to be thinking about everyone, any future generation, and saying whoever is here, we want these waters to remain free and flowing. So anyway, I feel like that's something that for local residents that are in our homelands in the Berkshires, for example, that to keep in mind, that's a way that those type of agreements are important to our ancestors, to keep cleaning up the Housatonic, keeping our rivers and lands clean for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonney. It's an important reminder and kind of inspiration for us. The last words about cleaning up the Housatonic. I really appreciate that. for us to stay focused on that, so the children and the grandchildren can swim and fish there again, and maybe even drink that water someday. Yeah. So thank you. And so now let's welcome Shawn Stevens, who's also going to be in just a few days, maybe I think next week, packing up his things and heading this way to observe the Indigenous Peoples Day with us here in the Berkshires in Great Barrington on October 11th. And he'll be here for a little while doing a number of things. And he's been coming to this area. A lot of folks know him for a number of years. So welcome. Thank you so much, Shawn, for being here on the Zoom.
Oh, how much time do I have?
About 10 minutes, but you know, take your time too.
Yeah, okay, I'll keep it short. My name is Red Eagle, and I am from the Stockbridge Muncie land here in Wisconsin by the Great Lakes. And I'd like to thank you all for coming to take time to hear our words. And what a great panel that we have, and kind of hard acts to follow, actually. And I'm grateful that we have such a good selection of people. To begin, how I fit in, I guess it's something that I've always been led by spirit. And ever since I was a child, and when I was searching around when I was not such a child, a very young man, looking for a mentor in our own community, somebody who knew traditional ways, knew the language, knew our culture. And it was so hard to find someone because a lot of that was gone. And a lot of that was gone because of the mission school days of taking of our language, taking our culture, taking all of our heritage from us. And even though it was only a few short years past, I want to say 1976, 1978, that we as Native American people were finally allowed to practice our own religion in our own out in public. And I knew there was some that within our people that did so, but it was in private. And it was very hard to get those people to be very sharing, you know. But once I did find those, and I began to learn what we call, like how you were speaking about with the ceremonies, the water ceremonies, the SWAT lodges, and what we call that the Red Road, following the Red Road, and really be able to find myself and my connection to my people, my connection to my environment, to my spirit, to the whole world. And I just began to see everything in a whole different light. And I was glad I had my mentor, because at this time still, there was still a lot of resentment, you know, for the things that were taken from us, you know, things that we didn't have anymore. It's intergenerational trauma. It's trauma that something that happens to your ancestors, and it trickles down those generations to affect those of us that are still in today. Fortunately, I don't have enough time to explain the whole thing to you, but I wanted to explain that I was led by spirit. And I guess one day I had this dream. That I was in this huge longhouse lodge. And this lodge was huge, like, like the shopping mall of America. That's how big it was. And it had many levels and many rooms and a lot of things going on inside. Outside this lodge, it was just dark and it was cold and it was just a very nasty place. But on the inside, there was many fires going on. A lot of different rooms where they were doing Native stories, Native American teachings, doing beadwork, singing, dancing, a lot of fires going on all over the place. And it was just a happy, great feeling, and just to be there and to be Native. And the thing with this lodge is that there's thousands of doors all the way around the entire lodge. But the only way you could get into these doors is somebody had to open it up from the inside. You couldn't open it up from the outside. And I just remember walking around having a really good time, you know, and I remember I could hear somebody on the outside and they were crying and they were cold and they were hungry, you know, and at first I thought it was something with, you know, playing with my mind or whatever, because nobody else noticed anything, but it kept getting louder and louder and louder. And it got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I had to stop somebody. I was like, hey, do you hear that out there? Do you hear somebody out there crying, you know, wanting to come in and stuff? And then people was like, yeah, we heard it, you know. And I said, well, how come nobody's letting them in, you know? And they just kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, they're not one of us, you know. And they left. And I remember standing there thinking, wow, that's not really a kind thing to way to think about it and stuff, you know. And I got to think, I was like, well, why don't I go open that door myself, you know? And I was about to go do it, and then I stopped and I started thinking to myself, well, what'll happen if I do that? You know, what'll people think of me? What about the people in here? What are they gonna think of me if I let an outsider in, let them in and share our food, let them share our culture, share who we are as people, you know? And I woke up right after that moment. And it really bothered me. Yeah, I don't know if you ever had a dream that didn't end the way you wanted it. You try to go back to sleep and finish it a different way. I tried that, but it didn't work, you know. And I went and I talked to my mentor about it. And I was explaining to him the whole dream, how everything happened. And he just kind of smiled, used man a few words, you know. And he had said when he was young that there was a teaching that people, his elders had told him, that there was a time that, you know, the white man or other people, non-natives, that they didn't want that kind of stuff. They didn't want it for themselves. They didn't want it for us. They wanted to get rid of it. He said, but one day that they're going to be lost, and they're good because they've lost their own ways. And because of losing their own ways and their own identity, the world's going to suffer. And he said, one day they're going to come back and they're going to ask us about our ways, to share with them our ways, to help them find their original indigenous ways again. And he said, and it's our duty to help them. He said, we can't be angry. We can't, you know, hold that against them. You know, that's part of that's human nature, but it's our job as Native Americans, as stewards of the land, to share that with people. We need to share with people how we're supposed to be, how to keep these connections with Mother Earth, with the land, and how to make other people understand their connection. And to be indigenous. Be indigenous, you know, is more of a mindset to understanding your connections, of where you are connected to. Now, we can take all kinds of different people and have them ask them, well, point to where your people's lands are, and you'll get in a lot of different directions, okay? Now, if we all get on a spaceship and go 1 million miles away, and then we ask the point where our land is, we're all going to plant the same place. Is that this earth? This earth is all of our land. And we all come from this land. And we have to recognize that we are earth. What we do to it, we do to ourselves. If we poison the earth, we are poisoning ourselves. You know, in one of my first trips going out to the east, I was all happy because I never thought I would ever make it out east. You know, I was never really involved in the community that way and such. But when I came out there, we came for the first powwow in the Berkshires. I was part of the Native American drum. We sang our whole drum for the first powwow and the rock rattle drum powwow. And I really wanted to go, you know, to the Mohican, you know, the Hudson River and catch me a fish, you know, because I felt, you know, a descendant, you know, of my ancestors catching a descendant of the fish's ancestors, have a good time and eat it, you know. But then, you know, one of my friends from out there says, you don't want to eat that fish. And he explained to me just, you know, about the pollution and everything out there. And it really kind of broke my heart, you know, and think, wow, you know, this is such the Hudson River, every river, it's a life-giving entity as well as Earth is, and it gives you. So it gave my people so much. It's so much to survive throughout the whole entire year, and to see that it's all been poisoned, and it really broke my heart. And to think, it was like, wow, what can we do about this? I thought, what can I do about this? And I wasn't too sure. But from coming out, I met a lot of people. I met a lot of people through the Kripalu Center and through the Stockbridge Library out there. And also through individual invitations and stuff to come out and do a lot of speaking of my people's history, because a lot of our history, a lot of Native history is not being taught the truth-wise in schools. And so I would come out and teach and share with people. And one of the first people I shared with her name was Jennifer Reese, and she works through the Kripalu Center there. And I just had this amazing feeling that something bigger was coming. And I told her, I felt like we just made like a ripple in the water. And when you just touch the water a little bit, the ripples grow, and they keep growing and they keep growing. And through that initial ripple, that's where I met Michael Johnson, who Lev has come through. And other people like Fidel Moreno, he was part of the rock, metal, and drum group. Powwow. All these people, so many people, I could not name them all. And they were such wonderful people that wanted our people to come out there and share our story, no matter how terrible it was, because you have to hear the truth. And if you don't hear the truth, there's that risk of carrying on in the future and making those mistakes again. I mean, history is truth, how, no matter how ugly it is, it's the truth. And the best way we can do to fix that is to give recognition that, yes, it did happen. You got some places like Texas who don't want to teach certain history in their school, maybe because that history was so embarrassing, but that raises ignorance through in the future generations if you do not give the truth. Okay, now it's ugly, but you have to share it, and especially with people who are willing to share that truth and willing to try to help get other people to understand everyone's own indigenous connections to this earth. If we do not take care of her, she will no longer take care of us. Okay. And I always tell people, I don't share this information with you to make anybody feel bad or to try to tell me that you're sorry for anything that you haven't done. Only thing we can do is go forward from here. What can we do from here forward? We can learn from the past. Okay. But we got to learn from the past and make better decisions for the future. Now, I've been coming out for, I want to say, probably at least 18 years. I want to say it was around 2002-ish that I first came out. And it was my first time coming up, and I never thought I would come back, but every year I've been asked to come back, maybe except for when COVID first came out. It was the first year probably I hadn't been out there at all, but always being asked to return sometimes 2-3 times a year to share with people. And I told people that is what I do, is that I share. And if you're willing to listen, I'll share everything with you that I can, because that's what my purpose is. I have no title other than helper, and it's to help people not only within my own tribe, but help people outside the tribe. If you help others, if you help your neighbor, you make your life even better. So it's to help other people, especially with understanding, and it's great to have somebody out here like Bonney Hartley now who takes, you would not believe all the work she does. It's amazing. And we are so grateful to have somebody like that out in a homeland, taking care of all of these things that we just did not have, the people or the time to do back a few years ago. And all I want to say is that I'm very honored to be a part of this panel, to have these elders and have Bonney and Lev, Mike Johnson. I don't know if he's in the audience out there somewhere, but just so grateful that we have people, our good non-native people, white people, black people, Oriental people, anyone who is willing to give us a helping hand, anyone who's willing to listen to the truth, anyone who's actually willing to help us further that truth, with land recognition, is to give us that recognition that, yes, we are still here. We lived here. This is where we live, and we are still alive, and we have a story. You know, and our story is our connection with the earth. And hopefully our story is to come back and to share that with everybody and make a positive impact to make the world a much better place that everybody. We're not so disconnected from this place. We are not aliens. We're not something that come from outside of this world. We are a part of this world. We are Earth. You know, we have to have that understanding. We have to start taking much better care. And a lot of people, we don't realize it, but you really have to go and look online when you start looking up pollution. And you see the devastating effects all over. I mean, they don't put it on TV all the time. You know, to see, you know, miles and miles of beaches full of plastic bottles and waste and such. And you can go along the tourist beaches and stuff. They have people that clean that stuff up, you know, every day. You know, but on the other beaches and the other places you go, there's just so much garbage, so much trash, so much chemicals that are out there killing and making more extinct animals every day. You know, the extinction level is rising and rising. And we are part of this ecosystem, which is the entire earth. And if we don't wake up, if we don't realize our indigenousness to this planet, we all won't be here very long. You know, and so I feel that that's part of my duty, that I need to come and share with people and say, we all have a responsibility. Okay, a lot of terrible things happen in the past. We need to recognize those things. Hopefully that we can ensure that we don't repeat those things again, not just to natives, but to other people. It breaks my heart to hear of children sitting in cages out west, and a lot of people are okay with that. And not understanding the intergenerational trauma that's going to go down through those children's generations. And me, I was happy that I was one that could snap out of that resentment mode, because there's still a lot of resentment in Native country on what was taken, what's been done to us, what's still being done to us. You know, but there's a lot of sharing. We got to come back together, and people come together and do something good for the entire earth, for all of us. And that is my focus, to share, to be a part of that, and to, with an open hand, say, if you have time, come sit down, we'll talk. You know, I'm not very, you know, intimidating or anything. You know, I consider myself a bit of a comedian sometimes too. I'm trying to make you laugh if I can. You know, but we're all brothers and sisters. We're all family. We got to start acting like family. We got to start treating our mother much better, because if we don't, our family is doomed. And I think I'll end there, or I'll keep talking forever.
Thank you, Shawn.
Oh.
Thank you for your words, your heart, yeah, your mind, your message. We're going to have an opportunity now for people to ask some questions, or interact with the panelists, but questions are good, to invite them to share on something specifically. So people who are in the room here, you can use this microphone. Is that right, Ray? So if anyone in here wants to ask a question, you can come up. And then if you're on Zoom, you can type your question in the chat, and Ray is looking at the questions. I just want to say thank you to Ray for making this happen.
Thank you, Ray.
So let's start. If there is a question here in the room, we'll start with a question here. And I'm not sure if you're allowed to take your mask off. No, you're not. Well, just speak slowly while you're at. Do you have a question? You coming up to the front, or no? You want? Well, yeah. Please.
Kwai. Namiho Elizabeth. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm very curious about the language reclamation work that is happening in the Mohican Nation. And I'm wondering if there is any efforts. I really found it very beautiful. You're sharing, Carol, about the work that you're doing in Maine. And I'm wondering what and how significant that is from your perspective on really having a relationship to the culture and to your to the community. And my sense is that that would be very helpful for the Mohican homelands to have the language return, as well as these activities returning. And I'm wondering where that is at this point, and if there's any work that can be done to support that.
Go ahead, Shawn.
I just want to be respectful of ladies first, in case, but I guess I am the chairman of the Language and Culture Committee, and we are in the process of reclamation. And with the Stockbridge Muncie Band of Mohicans, we have 2 Algonquian language, or Lenni Lenape language, and that's the Muncie language and the Mohican language. And with the Muncie language has always been a spoken language, and is still spoken by a few people up in Morgantown, Ontario, or Canada, somewhere in Canada. I might get my space wrong. By a few fluent speakers, but they have a wonderful program, and we've got a wonderful program down here as well. However, with the Mohican language, we're still getting off with working with a linguist, because for a long time, all of our Mohican language words were gone, especially through this tribe, because we have been hit so hard with the mission school era, I guess you could say. But they had been lost in archives for the longest time. And but through the help of a Stockbridge, Massachusetts historian, Ryan Miles, back in the late 1990s, he had actually given a tribe many documents that a lot of us had no idea had even existed for a long time. And in the early 2000s, our tribe had put together the Language and Culture Board to see what we could do with these languages. And at the time, we're offering both languages to people who are interested yet, and we're still working with a linguist. And it's an ongoing project. It'll be an ongoing project for life. Languages for life. And, but we're so blessed to have both of our languages back, and it's starting to grow. And so many things have been sprouted and going so well since the early 1990s. And I attribute that to the birth of the white buffalo calf. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that prophecy. You can look that up online. So many beautiful things had started to be done for our people back in the early 1990s. And we're really seeing the fruits of it all today. So yeah, we're on board with it. We're going, going straight and doing very well with it, both languages.
Can I just add to that? There's the Mohican and Muncie classes every week, Tuesday and Wednesday nights, and anyone can join. If you go to our Mohican.com website and reach out to the Cultural Affairs Department. And then if you just wanted to, take a peek at what some of the classes are like, there's our YouTube page, and a lot of the classes have been recorded on there. So you could just start with those too.
Thank you both. Carol, would you like to say anything about that?
She asked me something about what's my perspective on having the language. You learn to see how your ancestors viewed the world. And it just means a lot to me to be able to have access to that. There's always controversy, there was controversy about our writing system. And to me, it's all so much noise, and I know that language was ours. And to counteract all the hype about it, I thought, if I can get it in my head and in my heart, then I've got it. No one can take it. So I've really got in there and learned as much as I could. And I know I haven't been that good in passing it on. In the 80s, the old lady told me one day, Musa Wugawidi Hazi Gachin Jipton Tuezamodi. And I knew she meant, don't forget to take your cup, but it took me a month to be able to say that back to her. You know, if you grew up with just the English sounds, it's hard, you know, so it's a big task and I wish more people were involved, but it just is pleasing to me to be able to have that. I told Lev, I felt like I lived half a life without my language, you know. And I don't say too much to people because a lot of people like to joke with you in the language, and I don't usually like that. I don't know, maybe I'm too serious, but men especially. And I don't argue with anybody about my language. You know, I just have a lot of respect. There was a linguist that said we never had sacred. And I said, well, why do we have that word, we Selamagwe? So I called my cousin up down Pleasant Point, the Passamaquoddy Reserve, and she said, oh yeah, it's like Ganita Hama. That's when you have high respect. She goes like for water, you know, for life and all that. So I think that's what we have to offer the world, really.
Thank you, Carol. Grandpa Jake, I wonder if you want to say a few words about speaking your language. I know for myself, it's really a privilege when we're praying in ceremony and then you pray in your Dene language. Then I only am learning a few words, but when I hear you, it makes me feel good. So just wondering if you wanted to say something about that. Yeah, you have to unmute yourself there. No. There you go. There you go.
Coming up. Anyway, my first language was Navajo language. That was my first language, and I didn't start speaking English until I was about 7 years old when they put me to school. And I still speak my language, but there's also some of the language, some of the words are real old, and then some are the newer words too, you know. So and then there's also a certain way of expressing the word itself, you know, and with action and motion, and that expresses even more in a different way, and a different meaning. So but it's a wonderful, you know, to talk about the native language, and my dad was a medicine man, so a lot of his prayers were all in Navajo, and in there, then if I didn't understand the Navajo language, then I wouldn't understand what his prayers are about. You know, they're set prayers, you know, that he says for everybody.
Yeah.
And so then the whole traditional culture, as far as the medicine way is concerned, you know, then it's gonna be all lost without the language. And so there's a lot of things like the custom and the heritage that we carry on, that we worry about in our everyday life. it it is designed around our language. And once we lose the language, then all of that, the belief system, and it's gone, completely gone, you know. So anyway, that's about it, you know, what I want to say.
Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you for sharing about that. Appreciate it. Well, I'm looking at the time here and I just want to respect the time. We're going to try to finish it by 8. So, so I'd love to just ask each of the panelists to just say a few closing words. You know, one thing I was thinking about when I was listening to all of you is something that I heard the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say. I don't know if I'm going to get it exactly right. He said, you know, we didn't all come here on the same boat, but we're on the same boat now. You know, and it's kind of what I was hearing with everyone. But you know, Shawn was talking about acting like a family. You know, that we were the human family. So we got to remember that. And so that's how I see it. Is that we're all part of this family, and here we are in 2021. And what are we going to do for the children? That's really all there is. So, like you were all saying, we have to remember. So from the past, so we learn from the past, so we can heal and move forward and teach our children the good things of life. So just wanted to say that, and then ask each of you on the panel. We can just go around, Carol and Jake, and then Bonney and Shawn. I did that because I wanted to start with the elders and then the women first, and then the man, and then the younger woman and the younger man. That's just how I learned to have people speak. So I hope that was okay. And yeah, sometimes when I am in meetings, I ask, you know, what are you feeling inspired about? You know, as a way of closing our meeting. So I wanted to ask you on the panel, you know, what are you feeling inspired about right now from our conversation that we had tonight? So you can take a moment to think about it, but whenever you're ready, Carol, if you'd like to start, say a few words about your inspiration.
Well, I think my inspiration has been my children and my grandchildren, and that's all I can focus on. You know, that's all. I'm getting older now. And well, I said I'd rest. You know, I'm going to retire next year. And then I said, no, I'm not. I might try to teach at the university level. I saw somewhere that if you really want to know something, teach it. So I think when I retire, I'll do that and talk to my grandbabies, I hope. But thank you for considering me and having me part of this. I'm pleased to meet you. Bakwi halama, bakwanagwazian nijia. You're pleasing to my eye. I greet you.
Thank you, Carol. And yeah, Jake.
Okay. Well, I'm just inspired by this panel, what each one had to say, and it just this to this great day, you know, Indigenous Day, and there's a lot of depth to it, you know, and there's a lot to learn, a lot to understand from different tribes all across the continent, you know, and there's a lot of things that our children, grandchildren could learn from this, and it's wonderful. I really appreciate meeting each one of you, what you had to say, and everything. I enjoyed everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. And I think someone put in the chat, you might have put in just about making sure everyone knows about Native American Veterans Day. It's going to be November 7th this year and every year. So you can put that on your calendar, and we'll remind you our newsletter too. Hopefully we'll have something to bring our focus and honor that day. So thank you, Jake, for reminding us about that, Grandpa.
Oh,
and Bonney, what are you feeling inspired about?
Well, I mean, I love our people. I love our homelands, our ancestors. I guess for some current inspiration out here in the homelands is just individual stories, I guess, that come to mind of residents out here. Like there's a resident in Pittsfield that was just really moved by our exhibit. The Stockbridge Muncie has a exhibit at the Berkshire Museum in Pittsfield, and she saw baskets there that are Mohican baskets, and she recognized that the block print design on them was the same as a basket she had in her collection, which she had thought before was Shaker community. And so she just called up her office and came and, just turned and handed it over. It's just a gift. And I think that those kind of acts to me of generosity and kindness, I just have been really struck by a lot of residents in our homelands. And I know all of us are kind of sharing about Mohican history in our homelands is obviously, really painful, that separation. But I hope that moments like that to me stand out moving forward in terms of how we're always going to be in relationship, always going to be in conversation, communication between Mohican Nation and everyone living in our homelands. And I just hope that we can keep finding a good way to move forward. And anyway, so moments like the resident from Pittsfield who brought the basket stand out. And then for me, with our office being in Williamstown, I'm honestly just blown away by the students that I've been working with at Williams College, just like the enthusiasm and brightness and the way that they jump into supporting our work for repatriation and site protection. It's really, honestly, really energizing and uplifting to the work to know that it's not just us, that care about these issues, that they really drive a lot of the momentum for a lot of the projects we work on. And I really appreciate that. So they inspire me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bonney. And Shawn, what are you feeling inspired about?
My inspiration is the growing numbers of those who so passionately want to learn, who want to help heal and to grow, and that's from from our people to all other people as well. That it's not just kind of in the moment thing. It seems to be growing, and it keeps going more and more. And I love to help. I love to share with people who just seem so excited and want to help. There's just so much help out there, and so much from the Berkshire. I can't say enough about Berkshire people. I love them people to death, even though we weren't very alike when we left. I really love the people out there now, and they're so welcoming, and they want to learn, and it's almost like they demand that everybody else learns too, to learn the truth, to understand, to know history, to know what happened, and to join together and try to help heal. That inspires me to keep going. That's that one new.
Okay, amen. Aho, thank you, each and every one of you. So that's the end of the panel, and then I just have a couple of announcements, because when I hear people with a lot of wisdom and intelligence, and I'm sitting and listening, and then someone told me once, Michael Mead is another teacher, he said, when I have a real idea, it stands me up. It's in my blood, it's in my whole body. So you know, what I've been hearing tonight, it's like real ideas. It's real life. You know, that's what I heard, you know, my grandpa Jakey had a real idea, and it took him all the way across the country on his feet, you know, to help his relatives, Native American veterans. So it's good to then say, what can we do now that we have been having these ideas? So Ray, could you put that, that screen up? So these are some resources we're putting together. You know, there's a lot of things already happening in the Berkshires. Actually, don't think I brought that list up here, but it's on our website. Well, I can just read it. So first of all, I have my book on the table here. It's called Climate Leadership. And so it's this really the vision of Alliance for a Viable Future, what we want to have happen in the Northeast that's truly inspired by you know, the native wisdom that I've been immersing myself in for the last 15 years. And then also Bonney has her book on the table. And then there's a number of flyers as well that you can take for yourself, and also you can also pass out to your community. And then we have all these other things happening. First of all, the Indigenous Peoples Day bill is being voted on in Massachusetts, which is really wonderful. And you know, we're hoping for a good resolution. So we're going to have links for this. We just kind of put that up this just today. So if you check back, I'm going to have links there. But you know, there's the Sheffield Historical Society. The Mission House has a display. Kamalupa is a performance by Wham, by all Indigenous actors, produced and directed by all Indigenous actors. And Shawn Stevens is going to do the land acknowledgement blessing on October 9th, next Saturday night for that. So there's a partnership that we're forming, cooperating together. And then the Berkshire Museum has a whole exhibit on the Mohicans on the second floor. And I think it's been expanded. And then of course, October 11th is Indigenous Peoples Day. So, you know, everyone here in this room, you're invited. We're going to meet at the gazebo behind Town Hall, and then everyone on the Zoom too. You can come, and then even people who aren't here, you know, we want to all show up and stand together and walk together. We're going to walk on Main Street. That's what I told Jake, my granddad, last year when we were walking. We did it at the Cobble, Bartholomew's Cobble. I love that place. But I said, next year we're going to walk on Main Street. And that's what we're doing. So it's really wonderful. Yeah, and then Native American Veterans Day, and then Thanksgiving too. So, you know, it's important that this becomes something that's just constantly in our awareness, in our consciousness. It's not, you know, one day and then go back to your life. It's a way of life, like the red road of what Shawn was saying. And then Jake, he told me, they call it a red road, not a red path, because a road you walk on together. It's big. You can walk side by side. So we need to walk together, or we have that opportunity, the privilege, and then it's a responsibility, I feel. So those are some of the next steps that we can all take together, move together, you know, the 11th, and then we'll be back here in the UU meeting here on the 17th to do an integration workshop and really think about collaboratively in our community, what are the next steps for this year to come, you know, and then we're going to have Indigenous Peoples Day next year. But what are those things that we want to do, that we feel called to do, that come out of the experience. So that'll be on the 17th. So those are some things. And then of course, then we have a feedback form. Ray, do you want to click on that feedback form that I just put together? And so, you can fill that out more than once, or just be in touch and just let me know, and everyone that's organizing this, how it's going. It's our first year, in a public context, so we're just learning. I don't really know what I'm doing. I just felt like, well, we need to do something. So let's move, let's do it. And so we're learning. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but to be leading means to admit when we make a mistake and then just keep going. So that's the feedback form. It's really helpful to have that feedback from everyone in the community. So I think that's it. I think maybe we'll, yeah, thank you.